because I will be really trying to share some highlights of innovations and interventions that are new to pediatric here at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation in Toronto. The first three slides, U of T has a new requirement, so I actually don't have any real disclosure other than I am employed by Holland Bloorview. I have no commercial interests, and I really don't have any potential biases other than being proud to be at Holland Bloorview and sharing some of the work we're doing. So anyways, let's get started. From disability to possibility, and this is just a little picture for those of you who have never been to Holland Bloorview. It's located in North Toronto, about 15 minutes from here. I hope to share some new perspectives on some innovations, new interventions, and share with you some really creative work on family-centered care, which I think is making a huge impact in Holland Bloorview locally and for children and their families. We are Canada's largest children's rehabilitation hospital, fully affiliated with the University of Toronto, so a teaching hospital. We serve about 7,000 children a year, with about 600 inpatient admissions and 58,000 outpatient visits annually. We have 800 staff, part-time, full-time, and what we really rely on is over 1,000 volunteers. And I've actually been invited. Next week is our volunteer celebration where we annually celebrate and thank them. And we have one volunteer who's going to be honored for serving over 30 years. So really, we have a group of very dedicated volunteers. We're so lucky that way. We have a very diverse group of programs and services. And as you can see from the slide, many different childhood disorders that we serve, spina bifida, autism, CP, etc. They're up there. We generally see children 0 to 18. We do have a few instances where we're having difficulty finding adult partners, so adult physicians who are willing to take on some of our children who had childhood disabilities and are growing on into adulthood. So we continue to serve those children, those young adults, but our goal is always to find a more appropriate adult service provider who can continue their care. We have a number of community programs which really we are proud of that help connect kids to their local community, which is so important just in terms of participation and inclusion. So focusing on life skills, recreation, augmentative communication, and writing aids for those children who are nonverbal or unable to write with a pen or a pencil or even a typical keyboard. We have a number of nursery programs, and we provide OTPT speech outreach into the public school system, consultation to help our children integrate as well. Our Bloorview Research Institute was formed in 2002 and is something we're very proud of. But unlike what you're more familiar with, perhaps at acute care hospitals, our research institute focuses only on applied and clinical research. So we don't have any wet lab or bench researchers. And I will be talking about some of the scientists and their work shortly. The first one I would like to highlight for you is the work of Dr. Jan Andrusak, who is an engineer and a PhD, who has developed a functional knee for above-knee amputations. And one of the incredible things about his work, which I have a video clip I'll share with you in just a moment, is he has been able to develop this prototype for a cost of $50. For those of you who are aware of how much it costs to get or to purchase a prosthetic knee or lower limb, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So this is really exciting for particularly countries that are less well-resourced, and currently his work is now being tested in Chile, in Myanmar, and in El Salvador. So we're really proud of some of the work that he's doing here.
The LC knee joint is an artificial knee joint for individuals who've lost their limb above the knee. The main feature of it is an increased level of function that it provides in terms of mimicking and in effect what our muscles do in our body to make it possible for the individual to walk. So there is a unique mechanism inside of it that basically stabilizes the knee when the person puts weight on it, but it also allows free motion.
Jan's low-cost knee is a solution that's actually going directly to the people who need it most. And as far as broad impact, I can't even begin to imagine the number of people in the countries that we're presently testing the knee in, but I think in countries in future as well, in which that knee might also be very valuable. We anticipate that it will be a technology that will really allow the person who's using it to be able to function to the best of their capacity, to really participate more in activities that they want to do. I think an enhancement hopefully that comes alongside with that in terms of quality of life. So these are all really important features as far as impact to the individuals.
The Jan's research is impacting, I think, millions of children around the world. He's giving mobility to children who have a lot of spleen, having opportunity to ambulate independently. So I think that's a huge impact, and it's obviously impacting children in many different countries. He's an incredibly hard worker, very humble, doesn't like to boast about his accomplishments, but he really gets things done.
As an engineer, I'm very interested in this challenge, which I hope is from day one seen as just an engineering challenge with a potentially...
There. Just to give you a taste of some of his work, which we're really excited about. For once, really making, hopefully, a new innovation affordable. I'd like to now share with you one that is very popular with the children. It's our virtual music instrument. And this was developed by Dr. Eric Wan, an engineer, also a quadriplegic, and Dr. Tom Chow, who you just saw there, the VP of our research institute, also an engineer. They use computer technology to enable individuals with limited mobility to make music using body movements or signals. And this video clip was put together in preparation, for a debut at the Toronto Symphony Orchestra.
Let's try the first two variations.
Which one would you like to keep?
Let's keep the quarter notes. Okay, so is that okay? I think we're copying right now. We can't hear any of the counterpoints, so why don't we start from there first? When I see someone like Aaron producing music and we can reopt off that into something completely new in a new territory, well, it makes it fresh again.
For me, as an artist, it's fascinating to see how technology was married into the aesthetic and music-making experience.
Yep, you're all fine.
Just the wave of a hand with small gestures or moving your head. It was something very powerful.
I've learned playing with the violin for about 8 years before I got paralyzed. Ever since I got paralyzed, I really didn't think that I was able to play an instrument again. I've never done it in the settings like this before. Not mentioning on the stage. It's an incredible feeling. It's not something that I thought I would be able to do before the DNI was invented. It's pretty good.
You can imagine it was a very emotional night. The gentleman in the plaid shirt is Adrian Enawanton. Adrian actually is now a professional violinist. At the age of 9, he asked the prosthetist at Hull and Bloorview to adapt a prosthesis for him to allow him to hold a bow. He went to the Curtis School of Music on a full scholarship, and has performed with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, Montreal, and many other orchestras around the world. And he constantly is coming back to inspire and work with our kids at Holland-Bloorview, and really an inspiration for all of us. This, when you hear about, you'll understand, is a very popular research project, part of a 2-year grant with the PI, Dr. Darcy Failings, combined with some professional gamers out of Queen's University. And what they have developed is what we call an exergame. This is a young teen who is on an adapted bicycle, and by pedaling, he powers a television screen and an avatar that allows him to then play this computer game. But that's only part of it. The exciting part is he's wearing a headset. And what he's doing at the same time, this was when they were first experimenting and making sure it was working. There are 10 teens now who each have one of these in their homes. And what they do is with their headset, they talk to each other in real time, and they set up times on their own Facebook page to arrange when they're going to do this, either after school, they're a minimum 4 times a week. And what they're going to be measuring is the fitness level in these teens who often tend to become quite isolated and with decreased physical activity as they get the increased academic work that comes in. So this was really a project aimed at getting these kids active and also improving their fitness level, quality of life. Holland-Bloorview has the largest traumatic brain injury program in Canada. Both on the inpatient side, we have 24 beds dedicated to acquired brain injury, and we also have a large outpatient program. But this is a new tool and a new program where greater than 80% of these children with moderate and severe brain injuries have a lot of memory, significant memory challenges. So some of you, the older ones in the audience, recall using our day timers, our agendas, our calendars, which is how they used to work with these teens to remember what they needed to do in school. And they actually need to remember that they take books home, and they need to remember that they have to move from one class to another. And today they've adapted an iPod Touch, which is a great memory tool, which of course, because other kids are using them, is very motivating and allows for errorless learning, and also prevent some of the guessing that these kids were using to try to answer the questions, particularly in front of their peers as they integrate back into the school. And it therefore is allowing them to have much greater academic success. Our family leadership program is something that is really only a couple of years old, although we've always had strong parent volunteers at Holland-Bloorview. We have a leadership program now with over 100 family leaders who've been trained and have volunteered over 3,000 hours. These family leaders who go through a training program after an interview sit on more than 35 committees at the hospital. You cannot interview for a job at Holland-Bloorview anymore without having a family leader as part of the interview committee. They sit on board committees, they sit on subcommittees of the board. They are also very involved in family mentorship and actually staff a desk in our Family Resource Center providing one-on-one support or group support to families who may be new to Holland-Bloorview. We also have our families working as faculty. They do a lot of teaching at all our new staff orientations. They're teaching about family-centered care. They do a lot of partnering with our staff at presentations provincially and internationally conferences. And they are also now becoming quite involved in our patient safety program. One of the ones which is really more related to education, but that I've been involved with and very proud of, and several, I think, of the U of T medical students involved in that program are here today. We have partnered with family leaders and U of T medical students to introduce them to childhood disabilities and family-centered care, and developing a home visiting program. So that's also something relatively new. We have a family advisory committee with over 30 members, youth advisory, which is our teens, who actually were quite involved in shaping the building. We had a lot of feedback when the planning stages were happening for Holland Bloorview, asking that it not look like a Disney waiting room. They wanted to feel as they grew up in their teenage years that they would still be welcome and comfortable, and a lot of their feedback was taken very seriously. It's just in the last 6 months that we've started a children's advisory committee and have a committee of 4 to 14-year-olds working obviously with facilitators, but what they have already done is inform changes in the Ronald McDonald Playroom in our hospital and have made a lot of recommendations about our food service program in the hospital, which probably did need a lot of work. Screenplay is another new interactive innovation at Holland Bloorview, and this has come out of the fact that you can't have toys in the waiting rooms anymore. We can't have piles of magazines for people to look at due to infection control. And what one of our engineers, Dr. Elaine Bittis, did, working with some of the clinicians, developed a high-pressure sensitive floor that allows a child through standing, or they can roll around in their wheelchair, to generate colorful images. And the longer they spend on one particular tile, the more the image will grow. So it changes daily. Some are very abstract. Sometimes you build a forest. Sometimes you build flowers. But it actually has become very popular and made the waiting area prior to going into clinic a lot more fun and less anxiety provoking. We're doing a lot of work in the area of Botox, and for those of you who might be plastic surgeons involved in the cosmetic area, this is a different use of Botox. Our Botox is used to decrease muscle spasticity and improve function in our children. And Dr. Darcy Failings is heading up this work.
You had some Botox into your right calf muscles, right? And that was paired with some casting. You wore a cast below your knee. How many casts did you have? 2. You had 2 casts.
We're using a lot of botulinum toxin in children with stiffness or spasticity in their muscles. And what we find is that when we inject the botulinum toxin, it blocks the message of stiffness coming from the brain at the nerve-muscle junction. And by blocking it, the child can sometimes move the muscle a little bit better. By relaxing the muscle, it gives the muscle a little bit more freedom.
The reason that we did these injections was to help improve the flexibility of your ankle and try and get your foot down when you were walking and standing so you'd have better balance.
As you can imagine, though, for the children, the thought of going to a Botox injection clinic is not very fun. And so what we've done is we partnered with our music therapists who are actually now starting to come into the clinic and work with the children while they're being prepared for their injection. And not only does it make the kids happier, the parents happier, we're finding that the clinic actually is flowing a lot faster as well because the kids are less anxious. A relative new clinical trial, which was started in the last year at Holland Bloorview, relates to our Locomat. Dr. Virginia Wright and Darcy Failings are doing a randomized controlled trial evaluating the effectiveness of the Locomat, which is really a robotic, which you can see Wesley in on the far side, looking at enhancement of walking abilities, functional abilities, and their participation in cerebral palsy. So the Locomat is a new acquirement for us, and it was really due to an organization called 3-2B who raised over $400,000 to allow us to purchase this equipment because operating budgets would never cover something like this. So we're so pleased that we've been able to acquire the equipment, are doing the clinical trial right now, and then hoping that it will translate into part of our regular therapy practice once the trial is complete. Clowning and nonverbal communication. Well, we are very fortunate, again, through support of our foundation, to have therapeutic clowns at Holland Bloorview. But it was the clowns themselves who approached our scientists and actually said, we want to be sure we're not scaring these children because we don't get the verbal feedback. So what the scientist did, Dr. Shauna Kingsnorth, she has actually completed a study looking at physiological arousal, emotion, and behavior in our nonverbal, more locked-in children in our complex continuing care ward. And what they found is that every child actually did show a unique pattern of both skin temperature, sweat levels, heart and breathing rates during the clown visits that were not seen during television. And the television program they were watching was not the news, thank goodness. It actually was an appropriate child program. Autism is a newer program at Holland Bloorview. Previously, the autism services at University of Toronto were at the Hospital for Sick Children. But in 2005, that program closed at Sick Kids and moved to Holland Bloorview. And with the recruitment of Dr. Evdokia and Ignastu in the move of, who is a child neurologist, and Jessica Bryan, a psychologist, they are undertaking clinical trials looking at new medication psychopharmacology options for children with severe behavioral morbidity secondary to their autism, and hoping to really improve their functioning quality of life. And many trials currently going on, as also the establishment of an international network of those participating in clinical trials related to psychopharmacology for autism. Snoezelen is not new to Holland Bloorview. It was developed in the Netherlands 35 years ago, but we are trying to use it in a few unique ways. It is really a therapy that utilizes light, sounds, bubbles, and stimulation in order to relax the child. So we have a separate Snoezelen room on our inpatient unit where a child can go in and just be surrounded in a comfortable way by these lights and sounds and stimulation. We have a community room that families can sign up for, we also have a small therapeutic pool that has also been developed with underground light, with built-in lights and sounds, bubbles that come out of the water to make it more stimulating as well. But our biggest hit has really been our traveling Snoezelen cart, because that can go to the bedside for those children that cannot easily move around or access the other rooms. And also we take it into our treatment room where children may have to go for blood procedures or other procedures which might be more anxiety provoking. So this has really helped bring the anxiety level down as well. A new project, which is a 2-year pilot with the Toronto Board of Education, our Research Institute, and Sunnyview School, which is part of the Toronto Board, is the development of a communication access lab. And under Dr. Tom Chow, they are working with therapists, teachers, and students to be able to find new pathways to allow children who cannot manage typical computer systems for communication. And he's done some very innovative work, which I am going to be able to show you here. Using this one example of an adapted iPad.
I'm trying to show people your iPod and how it works. So basically, the actual adapted iPad is in this little case that hangs off the back of this chair. And it's connected to these external speakers. He hears auditory prompts, but they go through these lists. As he hears the prompt, if he wants to say that or go into that specific list of options, what he does is activate the external switch with his cheek. So the switch is right here.
Never mind.
So Jake has said, never mind. When it's going through the list of what he might want to say, it's sort of his thinking process. So it's a quieter voice. And then when he selects it, yes, this is what I want to say, he moves his cheek, it says it louder. And that's when we know that we can respond to that because that's what he's actually chosen.
I want spotting. I want to talk with someone. I want to go for a walk. I want to go for a coffee. I want to go for a coffee with mommy.
Okay! We're going to do that. Yay!
So Dr. Tom Chow in his lab has worked on other innovative ways, because one system does not work for all children, as you can well imagine. And a more novel system that he's developed is the use of a Hummer, which has a sensor on the throat. And this is a child who had such significant dystonia that he could not use and have isolated control of any particular movements to allow him to even use a head switch. So he uses sensing. So this child actually has a sensor taped to his throat. On the outside, you can see the string hanging down. And it scans these words below, and he makes a noise that activates the computer and allows him then to communicate.
Disney World. We had a great time.
And the last area I just want to introduce you to is we actually have a school on site, the Bloorview School Authority it's called. It's run by the Toronto Board of Education, but we supply the therapists to the school, and then they use a lot of our resources in terms of specialty clinics like orthotics, etc. And they are clients of Hull and Bloorview as well.
We have a daughter, Katie, who is now 6 years old, and she is diagnosed with cerebral palsy, has been since she was born. And if you're looking at coming to Bloorview, it would be an understatement to say that you will be pleasantly surprised. You'll be shocked. It is overwhelming. The things that they have done for our daughter are, it's just over the top. The level of care of the individual and the recognition of that individual's needs and uniqueness is astounding. It's not like a regular school at all.
So just, you know, it's really just a sampling and a taste that you've been, that I tried to give you. So many more programs and services I wasn't able to highlight. But just to let you know in terms of what does the future really hold, well, we're now in a new strategic plan, transforming care. This is working with our families to be able to bring the newest treatments as quickly as possible to the clinic and to the bedside. We'd like to work at leading the system so that we are advocates both with the ministries, with the education systems, so that children with disabilities are receiving the appropriate educational, medical, and therapeutic resources that they require. Accelerating knowledge, Tom Chow through our Research Institute is doing some wonderful work there. And Inspire Our People is not just about the kids and the families and our staff who are so dedicated, but what we also want to do is to be able to take the many students who come through our doors, training both in medicine, nursing, all of the therapies, therapeutic rec, and make sure that they get excited about childhood disabilities and consider it as a career option, and hopefully one day will come back and want to work at Hull and Bloorview or a similar place elsewhere in Canada or around the world. So I'll close here, and I've made it under the timeline. Okay.